In today's video, we have lots to discuss, including a big trade rumor involving a deal that was close but never happened and was rejected by the Montreal Canadiens involving Trevor Zegras. We'll discuss the latest speculation on that front. Plus, we have some other news around the NHL, including changes to the Columbus Blue Jackets coaching staff. It's Crosby's birthday. We're getting an update on the contract today. Plus, we're taking a look at an Athletic article that was polled by fans and subscribers on their confidence levels in NHL teams' front offices. Who were the best teams with the best confidence by their fans, and who were the worst and some of the in-betweens. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some interesting topics to take a look at here today. It is, of course, 8/7, August 7th today, the birthday of Sidney Crosby. He actually shares a birthday with a few other NHLers as well, in case you weren't aware. I know Jake Allen, who I share a hometown with, our local NHL star, and David Severson, I believe, as well. So a couple of other guys with 8/7 birthdays. But it's Crosby's birthday. There's been lots of speculation around, will we get a contract extension for Sid on 8/7? Pittsburgh media has been kind of almost shaking their heads, not really sure where this is going because of the fact that he has not signed an extension this offseason. Most people felt that, Kyle Dubas and the Penguins would be, pretty much hand over whatever he wanted. And they want to obviously keep Crosby to finish out his career as a Penguin. We saw them do extensions for Chris Letang and Evgeny Malkin. Crosby was very vocal and, involved to some degree, putting forth his opinion for them to be retained. I can't imagine there's any scenario where he would bail on his good friends and longtime teammates at this point and leave the Penguins on his own accord. At least you wouldn't think, right? But because the fact there's no contract signed, people are wondering, people are speculating what's going on with Crosby. We've seen Rob Rossi, Mark Madden, a few other Penguins media personalities kind of talking about, maybe as superstitious as he is, and as much as he loves the 8/7, maybe his birthday will be the day. Well, so far, it's still a few hours left. We're approaching 8 o'clock Eastern time in the evening here as I record this video. I can't imagine we're going to get Crosby news late at night. It just doesn't seem to make sense when, it's kind of a slower news cycle right now. So I know a bunch of those people that were talking about it in the media said, well, maybe if we don't get an announcement on his birthday, maybe that's the point where we start to ask more questions. We start to speculate more. Well, here we are. So, we don't have any information to suggest this isn't going to happen. We don't have any information to suggest that he's leaving or doesn't want to sign. But it does make you wonder what is taking so long when this should be a pretty easy deal to put together. So, in my opinion, it's not done because Sid's not ready for it to be done. At least that's how I feel about it. I really can't confirm that. That's just my gut feeling. So let me know your thoughts on the Sidney Crosby situation. We thought maybe today would be a big news day, being his birthday and the superstition that evolves around 8.7, 8/7, etc. But nothing has come to be here so far. Couple other quick notes, and then we're going to jump into the Athletic article that I found quite interesting here today. Former NHLer and AHLer Will Bitton is now heading over. He's the latest to jump from North America over to the KHL. In the Columbus Blue Jackets, we know that they were moving on from Mark Recchi as an assistant coach after one season with the new head coaching staff there under Dean Evison. Some guys are going to be likely remaining, at least I know McCarthy appears to be, and they're promoting apparently Mark Havlat, who was with the American Hockey League franchise, and will be getting the bump up to the NHL to replace Mark Recchi on Dean Evison's staff. So I'm not sure there's going to be further changes or additions to the Evison coaching staff, but that's what we know so far about Columbus. Now to the Athletic article that I found quite interesting. The Athletic article was basically, like I said, written from a perspective of what is your level of confidence in these teams' front offices. Now, it focuses on a bunch of different things. One, they kind of want, their fans of that team, what they think, and then what the general public and hockey fans in general think of those fan bases or their front offices and their confidence level. So it focuses on their ability to build a roster, cap management, their ability to draft and develop, making trades, signing free agents, and their overall long-term vision of the franchise. There's some surprising results here. Some are not overly surprising, but the top 3 teams, one was the Florida Panthers, which really, they just won the Stanley Cup. That shouldn't be shock. They did well in this poll last year. They got to take a move up. I think they were top 6 or 7 spots last year. So Florida got top grade. I would think that fans of that team would have the utmost confidence. Really, you can't get any better. You're the Stanley Cup champions. And for other fans and subscribers looking at this, you'd be like, yeah, you know what? They clearly put together a winning team. I would say I have confidence too. Number 2 was the Dallas Stars, and number 3 was the Tampa Bay Lightning. Again, 2 teams that have had a lot of success here lately. Of course, Dallas might not have won a Stanley Cup recently, but they've had a ton of regular season success, been one of the top teams in the Western Conference, and Jim Nill has done a lot of good things, been in the conversation as one of the top general managers for the last at least 2-3 years for sure. And in Tampa, they've had an extended run of an immense amount of success, multiple Stanley Cups here recently. Obviously at this point, you can say that maybe they're gonna fall back a little bit. It's hard to say. Are they getting older? They obviously made a bunch of moves this year. It's gonna be weird not having Stamkos there. They have Jake Gensel instead. Bring back Ryan McDonough. He's obviously a bit older, but still a pretty good defenseman. Is this team are they better than before? It's hard to say, but the team's fans and fans in general still have a ton of confidence in this franchise. And certainly, that goes to show something. Now, the teams that were at the very bottom, the bottom 3, so we're going to look at 30, 31, and 32. 30th was Toronto. So those fans of Leafs, obviously, they've kind of become a little jaded, I think, after all this time and getting all these top young players, and have gone through quite a few years now, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, etc. And they've only got 1 series win in the playoffs. I think they don't have a ton of confidence, which makes sense. And from the Leafs, I would thought that their own fan base would have more confidence to give them a better rating here. I can understand confidence from other fan bases, but they don't seem to have a lot of faith. The Los Angeles Kings were 31st. The New York Islanders were dead last. So goes to show you, I'm not shocked. I've heard enough and seen enough online from Islanders fans to know that they don't really believe right now in Lou Lamoriello's vision. They don't really have a lot of belief in his ability to build a roster. There's really been not a lot of movement the past couple of years. A lot of it is because of the fact of how that's constructed, the contracts, his loyalty to these aging stars. This team needs to have an injection of youth. They haven't. A lot of their prospects that have looked promising haven't really made it. They haven't had that injection of youth. There's lots of reasons to be doubtful of the New York Islanders. I mean, I've been a fan of this team. I noticed they really caught my attention after John Tavares left. I really thought they were going to really take a nosedive, and they didn't. They became a much better team. They had some really good runs, but I think that team under Barry Trotz especially was kind of hit its max there. They got absolute maximum effort and results out of that team. And as it stands now, we've got everybody's from those years are a bit older now. They're already at a very mature age, and then you add 3-4 more years on, and Lulis keeps coming back to the well and not making a ton of moves. And I get it; it's not easy, but you see other teams doing it, and it just goes to show you that teams are not, or their fan base is not really confident. Same with Los Angeles after the Pierre-Luc Dubois debacle. They don't have a lot of faith right now in Rob Blake and his staff and their ability to put together a team. They've gotten better, but I mean, they went from, just like some of these other teams too, they went from rebuilding and getting all of these high draft picks to all of a sudden adding in all this older veterans, right? And honestly, I think they felt pressure from guys like Kopitar and Doughty. Like, they made it clear they didn't want to go through no big, lengthy rebuild. They had a little bit of that, and they're like, okay, we need to add some veterans here to get this show on the road. A lot of their top picks have not really worked out, and well, ultimately, the team has been a playoff team for 3 straight years. They have not won a series, and they've gone fewer games each time, went from 7 games to 6 games to 5 games. So I can understand the sentiment there in Los Angeles. One that was a little bit surprising on the positive side, the number 4 ranked team with the most confidence was Utah. Obviously, that fan base, of course, if if you live in Utah and you're kind of considering yourself a new fan, or you change your allegiance to this new team that's now in your area, clearly, this new group does look like they certainly have they have what it takes, right? And the problem is too, if you look at it's the same staff besides ownership in Arizona. But I think they had a lot of handcuffs on, right? They really showed us at the draft that they mean business and they're serious. They're going to spend money. They're going to improve things, and clearly they have a bright future ahead. A few other quick notes here, and then I'll link the article if you have a subscription, or obviously it's paid content, so you can't just read it without subscription. So I don't want to show a bunch of screenshots or reveal too much here, but a couple other quick points here from the article. Vancouver was number 5 and Montreal was number 6. So clearly those Canadian teams, their fan bases, and those general fans certainly have a lot of confidence in the way they're going. The Rangers were 17th. I found it interesting that Detroit and Ottawa were right next to each other, 21-22. Not as much confidence there as you would think, considering how closer they're getting to the playoffs. The other team kind of in that conversation, the Atlantic with them, was the Sabres. They were even lower in 26. The Edmonton Oilers, that was a huge surprise. The Oilers were 25th. I mean, they were in the Stanley Cup final last year, and by many betting sites are the favorites to win the Cup next year. And really, there's not as much confidence there as you would think. Pittsburgh was 29. So talking about Sid and the lack of extension and all that, I'm not sure how he feels about it, but the fan base and fans in general, not too confident that they have the ability and are on the right track to build a good roster, manage the cap and draft developable, and have this team be competitive. So, yeah, there you have it. So, like I said, if you have an athletic subscription, you can check the article out. If not, you can consider getting one. But it's a very interesting article just on confidence levels and how the fan bases and fans in general are feeling about all the different NHL clubs. Now, as I mentioned, we have a big rumor floating through social media today. It's gotten a lot of attention, and anywhere you can talk about the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs, of course, are a big fan base. They have had a ton of rumors around them all offseason, ever since really Kent Hughes confirmed publicly that, yes, I'd like to make a big trade at the draft, and I want to get another top young player. He confirmed it to us with his own words. And then it never happened. And really, ever since the draft until the free agency and the whole offseason, we keep hearing these rumblings about the Habs. They haven't made that big deal yet. When's it coming? We've heard about Zegras. We've heard about Laine. We've heard about, a little bit of Capo Caco, a little bit of that. Who's it going to be? Well, lately it's mainly been Zegras and Laine, with Laine getting the most attention lately. Zegras, I haven't heard about Zegras to the Habs too much now, but around the time of the draft and earlier in July, there was a lot more speculation about that back then. So the author of the article that I'm looking at here is Marco Normandin. So I can't verify his sources, but I heard a lot of this similar stuff around the time of the draft. Again, a lot of it is fan speculation, so you can't verify who everybody's sources are and how legit they are. But regardless, I think to some degree this would not surprise me if it's true, but I can't verify that it is. But either way, we're on this discussion for entertainment purposes. It's to talk about it. Would you have done it? A what if type of scenario. So the rumor is that, according to his sources, is that the Canadiens had a deal. Basically, sounds like they were lined up, but I want to see how things went at the draft before they executed. So it was Trevor Zegras and a second-round pick going to Montreal for defenseman Logan Mailloux and a first-round pick. Now, not their 5th overall pick, but the other first-rounder they had, which they got from the Jets in the Monahan trade. Now, they ended up trading that pick with the Los Angeles Kings. They moved up from 26 to, I believe it was 21, I think it was, so they could draft Michael Hage. Obviously a player that they really liked as well. Now, it sounds like the biggest reason this trade was rejected was mostly because they got Demidov. I've said this on numerous occasions on the channel. You can look at any video where we've covered the Habs and rumors about Zegras or a lot of other young players. I've said it numerous times. I really feel that the trade that everybody was kind of hoping for and looking for at the draft around Montreal getting another top young forward did not happen, mainly all because they were able to get Ivan Demidov at the draft. Ken Hughes himself has said that obviously their ability to pull off this, like leading into the draft, he said that they were hoping to make a type of trade at the draft like they've done before. They would like to add another young piece if they could. But at the same time, a lot of what they do is going to be dependent on who they're able to draft, who's going to be available when they're picking. That's going to play a role in things as well. They don't want too much duplication, right? It's kind of what they were saying, is they don't want to have too many of the same type of players. They need to have variety. Well, clearly, there was some concern that they may not get Ivan Demidov. If they were going to end up picking at 5 and he was gone, if there was a bigger run on forwards than they were expecting, and, they were going to end up maybe with the best players of being available being defensemen, or maybe being a different forward, then maybe they were going to more likely to pull off this trade. Because I honestly think if you take a look at how highly skilled Demidov is. I mean, I'm not saying him and Zegras are exactly alike. I don't think that's fair to say. But there's enough similarities that you could kind of put them in the same sort of category. Very highly skilled, very shifty, good playmaking. There's enough similarities there that you don't want too many guys the same. So, what do they want to, get 2 guys just like that? I don't think they do. That's why, to me, the Patrick Laine trade rumors that are more going on now, they do make more sense. Patrick Laine is obviously a little bit older, but he's still really young. He's a lot bigger, a lot stronger. He's got a wicked shot and plays a completely different style of game. So it makes more sense to me that they would have more interest in a guy like Laine than they would a guy like Zegras. Clearly, I think there was a connection there. We know the connection between Zegras and Caulfield. They played together at the U.S. National Team Development Program. They're great friends. I think there'd be instant chemistry. Not to say that they don't want to, look into that, and I think they did. And I do think there was legit interest there. But, if Demidov's not available, and they're like, geez, we think now, besides with him being gone, and looking at the draft board, that the top players available are defensemen. We don't really need a defenseman, but when you're picking that high, taking best player available is really what you should do. Maybe we take a defenseman because, we got to do the right thing here for the organization, draft the best player available, and then maybe we pull off this trade. Maybe that defenseman could then replace Logan Mailloux, who is now on the table as part of this trade with the Anaheim Ducks. Now, of course, that other second round, or the second first round pick that they we're talking about including in this trade, if indeed this rumor is legit, that's what they ended up landing Michael Hage with. Now, not to say, because obviously they really like that player. They may not have been able to get him, obviously, if they do this trade. Now, of course, they maybe get an extra second rounder, and they already had a few second round picks. So maybe they still find a way to trade up until the later part of the first round again in a separate deal, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know how badly they wanted him. But again, he's a different kind of player than these guys. Again, he's not comparable to Zegras. He's not comparable to Laine, not comparable to Demidov. So, I can understand why they liked him. And obviously he's got a good story being a Habs fan and all that. That's even better. But at the same time, he's a good player. And he looks like he's going to project real well to be a middle six centerman for them down the road. So, maybe that doesn't happen, right? You can't really go into it and say it absolutely doesn't, because if they liked him enough, then maybe they find a way to make other moves to get another pick. But at the same time, if you're Montreal and you get Demidov, does it make sense to you to trade for Zegras too? I don't think it does. Now, if you're looking at the right side of their blue line, you got Logan Mailloux, you get David Reinbacher coming. Clearly they signed Justin Barron. You've got David Savard for at least one more season. Obviously, you got to be careful moving some of these guys. I think they would probably prefer to move a left shot defenseman, but maybe Mailloux is a player that the Ducks preferred over a guy like Harris or Struble or some of these other defensemen that have been rumored to maybe be expendable for the right piece coming back. So at the end of the day, like I said, this is just a rejection trade rumor that never happened, but it makes sense to me. It really does, based on the comments of Ken Hughes going into the draft. And I've said it myself numerous times. Montreal did not make a big trade for a young player at the draft because they were able to get Ivan Demidov, because all the players that were linked to them that they were really looking at, I think at that point in time, were similar to him. And they were kind of plan Bs if Demidov is not there. So to me, this falls in line with the way I've been thinking for the last number of weeks. So I kind of would believe this to be truthful and have at least some degree of truth behind it. But again, like I said, I can't verify this guy's sources, so I can't say absolutely it is. I know sometimes when it comes like from an Elliot Friedman or a Darren Dreger or, Chris Johnson, any of these guys that have a lot more, they've been in the game a lot longer being an insider. We know they have real good sources because a lot of their other info is accurate. It tends to be more believed as the truth, right? So we can't say for sure that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but I can't say that he does either. But it's an interesting concept, and I can see how it would make sense. So let me know what you think. Do you think there's much to this? And if you were Ken Hughes, did he do the right thing? I think he did. I really do. I think if he's going to go after another top young player to add to that forward group, I think there's better fits out there. Like you said, you don't want too much duplication. Add somebody with some size and scoring ability instead of, more of the skill setup, smaller, he doesn't play a big physical game, doesn't have the size like a Laine does. Not that Laine, he could play more physical too, but it's another story. But, I think that they did the right thing here. But let me know what you think, and we'll talk further in the comments. I'll link the article on that one as well. So there'll be 2 articles linked in the pinned comment to take a look at, to check out everything we're talking about in this video. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.